Geronimo Stilton, The Enchanted Charms, the seventh adventure in the Kingdom of Fantasy. Chapter 1. I loved summer in the city. It was a stunning summer night in Nemo's city. The sun was setting, turning the sky a fabulous shade of pink. Oh, how I loved summer in the city. I was heading home after a long day at work, and oops, excuse me, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton, and I run the Rodents Gazette, the most popular newspaper on Mouse Island. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, that evening I was walking home, feeling peaceful and happy. I decided to treat myself to some ice cream. Lucky for me, my favorite ice cream parlor, Tutti Frutti, was on my way. When I arrived, I looked at the counter. Holy cheese! So many flavors! There were at least 34 different flavors of ice cream. The owner, Lickety Splits, greeted me. Hi, Mr. Stilton. I just read your new Kingdom of Fantasy book, The Search for Treasure. I loved it. I love books with knights and princesses and gnomes and dragons, and I was glad Lickety liked my book. But I have to admit that I was having trouble paying attention to him. How could I concentrate when there are a lot of ice cream staring at me in this note? Still, Lickety didn't seem to notice. When will you be writing your next fantasy book, Mr. Stilton? He babbled. And tell me, where do you get your ideas for this book? That got my attention. How do I explain the Kingdom of Fantasy? Well, the truth is that each of these books comes from a real adventure. I began. Lickety's eyes widened. You mean that you've actually been to that place? He squeaked. I coughed. I knew it wouldn't be easy to explain, but I tried. Yes, I really go there, but in dreams, that is, while I'm dreaming. You see, I'm sleeping, but then I'm dreaming about the adventures, so I mumbled. Lickety looked at me strangely. So then you don't get there by plane or train or bus or anything. You just go to sleep, he squeaked. Hey, maybe I could go to the Kingdom of Fantasy, too. I know, I nodded. Sure, I guess so, I answered. To be honest, I wasn't really sure how I first ended up in the Kingdom of Fantasy. It all started when I found a jewelry box in my attic, and then I guess I fell asleep because I had the wildest dream. Of course, I don't dream about the Kingdom of Fantasy every time I go to sleep. Sometimes it just sort of happens. Remember when you met the dragon of the rainbow and the time you went to that chocolate castle, Lickety said. I smiled, remembering. I was still thinking about my exciting adventures when a voice behind me grumbled. Hey, you! What's taking so long? Pick a flavor and move on! I turned around and realized that there was a long line of rodents behind me. Everyone huffled impatiently. Hurry up! This isn't brain surgery any day. How embarrassing. I was just about to choose any oat flavor when I felt someone tugging on my jacket. It was a small mouseling holding her mama's paw. "Are you Mr. Geronimo Stilton, the author of the books about the Kingdom of Fantasy? They're my favorite. When are you writing the next one?" she squeaked. "Well, I stammered. Now everyone was really staring at me. An old rodent with a long handlebar mustache tapped me on the shoulder. "Congratulations, kid. I love reading your fantasy books to my grandchildren. They're so much fun. By the way, when are you writing the next Kingdom of Fantasy book?" I didn't have time to respond before a lady mouse shoved a piece of paper under my nose. I'd like your autograph, please, and write, "To Scamper from Geronimo Stilton. My son will be really happy. By the way, when are you writing the next adventure?" The crowd began to gather around me. It seemed that everyone had forgotten about the ice cream. Now they just wanted to know one thing. When was I going to write the next Kingdom of Fantasy book? Well, I stuttered. Lucky for me, Lickety Splits came to my rescue. He handed me a humongous ice cream cone with a zillion different flavors. I recognized 14 of them. "Just hoping that you'll write a new fabulous fantasy book really soon," he squeaked. I thanked everyone and dug into my ice cream. Chapter 2. Do you want the good news or the bad news first? The next morning, when I reached my office at the Rodents Gazette, I saw that my co-workers and my family were all gathered there. My grandfather, William Shortpaws, founder of the Rodents Gazette, checked his watch and thundered, "Grandson, you're late. We've been waiting for you." I gulped. Have you ever met my grandfather? He's super tough and always threatening to take back control of the paper. I didn't know we were having a meeting, I stammered. My cousin Trap snickered. "We're having a meeting about you, Gary Berry." Huh? What was he squeaking about? And why was everyone staring at me? First, it happened last night at the ice cream place, and now it worked. I was beginning to get a complex. Okay, so do you want to hear the good news or the bad news first?" Trap asked with a sly smile. Grandfather grumbled impatiently. "Oh, for rat's sake, just tell him. Come on, before milk grows on my whiskers. I've got other things to do today." My nephew Benjamin took my paw. A sinking feeling came over me. What if the bad news was really, really bad? Like maybe Grandfather William sold the paper, or my pet fish Hannibal had gone belly up, or they stopped making cheddar melts at Squeak and Chew. So I said, "I'll take the good news first. The good news is your book, The Search for Treasure, is a bestseller. Readers love it." Benjamin squeaked. I smiled. I love my fans. "So The bad news is they love it so much they want a new fantasy book now, Trap added. Grandson, you need to start writing immediately, Grandfather William demanded. You mean right now? I asked. Oops, wrong question. Grandfather William began shouting so loud the windows in the office began to rattle. Grandson, are your ears full of cheese? Or maybe you need a dictionary. Of course, immediately means now. We need to get the 7th adventure in the Kingdom of Fantasy in print immediately. The deadline was yesterday. You're late, he thundered. I wanted to point out that I couldn't have missed a deadline if I didn't know it existed. But I didn't want to upset Grandfather, so instead I tried to explain my writing progress. Well, you see, the thing is I can't write it now because I can write books about the Kingdom of Fantasy only when I have a special dream. And my voice trailed up. So much for not angering Grandfather. He looked like he was about to hit the ceiling and shoot out the roof. Special dream? Don't start dreaming, grandson, he ordered. Benjamin brought me a steaming cup of chamomile tea. Maybe this will make you sleepy, he offered. I took a sip, trying to relax. It didn't work. I felt down. I felt jumpier than ever. Then everyone left and I laid down on the sofa in my office, placing a very soft pillow under my head. I closed my eyes, hoping that I would fall asleep, but I couldn't sleep. I tried lying on my left side, but it gave me a cramp on the leg. So I tried my right side, but got a paw cramp, turned onto my stomach, and onto my back, and then upside down. But still, I couldn't go sleep. Rancid rat hiss. I was having a nightmare, and I wasn't even dreaming. I put the pillow over my ears, then I turned on the air conditioning. A second later, I turned off the air conditioning. I tried sipping a warm glass of milk, nibbling on a piece of cheese, and reading from the phone book. Finally, I attempted to count sheep, but I kept losing count and having to start all over again. Nothing even worked.